This is episode number 57 with Noble Brewer Beer. You know, it's pretty simple and wonderful, really. They connect amateurs with professional breweries, so you can buy home brews online for a subscription service. You subscribe, I think they send it out quarterly, so, every quarter, every 3 months, we'll say, you get 4 different home brews in the mail. Now, what's really cool about the company is they do a great job, and you're seeing this as a theme in a lot of the companies, almost all of the companies that have consumer-facing brands that have been on the show, is they do a great job telling the story behind the home brewers themselves. Because you're going to see how the home brewers have to, work with professional brewery for a lot of legal and mass production reasons, and you get that behind them, and you're able to tell the story, which is, beer being shared over dinner with friends, etc. And they do a great job. Before I bring our guest on, I wanted to let you guys know that there is a site called Rocket Club, rocketclub.co, right? Not .com, but .co. And right now, if you guys want to, you go to rocketclub.co, click on the Noble Brewer link, and you can sign up for shares in the company. They're valued in between $500,000 and $1.5 million. But anyway, it's a small investment. If you'd like to own a piece of a really exciting food delivery startup, this is a way to get your hands on it. All right, please enjoy the show.
Welcome to the Food Startups Podcast, connecting the opaque world of food startups.
He is from Waldorf, Maryland, another guest from the state of Maryland like myself, and he went to the Navy, then he got his MBA at MIT, and now he is working on creating a delivery service that is the Etsy of beer. Claude Burns, how are you doing today?
I'm doing great. Thanks for having me on.
Yeah, no, it's been really great with all of these Food Bite Summit guests. You are the third interview to go live. I mean, tell me about the summit.
I mean, it's so great to see all the innovative things people are doing with food. I think it's really an area that has a lot of room for innovation. So kind of going to something like Food Bites and seeing all the innovation that's happening and people doing everything from kind of more ag tech technology to make the food ecosystem more sustainable to kind of finding different food sources to support the growing population. It's really interesting to see what people are working on.
Right on. Yeah, and just the companies there. I'm really happy that you got to be part of that, and you have a great company, but back to the roots, et cetera, Tiny Farms. There's just some amazing, amazing companies. And my takeaway when I got approached by Food Bites to kind of be a media partner for this, because I have my own food business, right? It just reinforced this idea that if you want to play with the big boys, if you want to really grow a company today, you have to do something amazing. You can't just make a little bit better granola or a little bit better micro craft beer, right? You have to do something new and innovative. And Back to the Roots is definitely at the top of the list. I just was with them in Fancy Food Show, and they got nominated for I think they got second or third place for a Sophie Award there.
That's awesome. Yeah, I mean, I think consumers definitely expect more these days and just in their products overall. So yeah, just a minor improvement's not really going to get any attention. You kind of have to do something unique and different to really stand out. There's a lot of people doing innovative things. So if you want to kind of be at that forefront, kind of like Back to the Roots, you definitely have to do something unique and have a brand and kind of stand for something more than just selling a product.
Exactly. And Claude, so I'm in Maryland right now doing the interview. I travel all around, but right now I am back in our home state. And so just tell me a little bit, you were into sports in high school. What made you decide to join the Navy?
That's a great question. I'm from Maryland, and the Naval Academy is in Annapolis, so it's also in Maryland. And just heard it was a really great school, engineering focused. It was also something that would make you well-rounded. You had to have some kind of athletic background. You had to play a sport while you were there. And then the leadership component of it really appealed to me. So ultimately, when I thought about what I wanted to do, being very well-rounded was something that really appealed to me in high school. And so the Naval Academy, I thought, would kind of give me the best chance at kind of developing myself that way.
And you say you have to play a sport there. Is that actually on the Division I team or just intramural?
Yeah, it has to be. I would love it if I could have played like D1 football or something, but it has to be a varsity sport, a club sport, or intramurals. But you have to do something, which I kind of appreciated.
And what did you play?
I was a rugby player.
Oh, right on, right on. And so you talked about the engineering background, and it's funny because I have a good buddy that was, I think he served till he was 35. He served for a long time and was an officer, et cetera, et cetera. Being a civilian, you notice certain things that, well, one, being on time, being very detail oriented. And I remember we were traveling to do this project, and he had 2 extension cords. And I was blown away because I was like, man, I would never think of bringing 2 extension cords. In the military, it's very common, the saying, 2 is 1 and 1 is none. But I think it's, I don't know if you've heard that before.
Oh, yeah.
Okay, cool. Yeah. So it was just really interesting to me. You have to be very pragmatic in the military. And so after that, you went to an engineering school. Well, I'd say MIT is primarily, you think of engineering, right, in physics, but you did your MBA there.
Yeah, so MIT has a great entrepreneurship program. And when I was looking at business schools, when I was decided to get out of the Navy, doing something entrepreneurial was what I was interested in doing. And they're extremely well known for it, and they have a great program there. So that's ultimately why I decided on MIT. And just being around that many smart people and some of the things that are happening around campus, it's just really mind-blowing to be a part of.
Yeah, it's the osmosis, right? Sometimes
that's what I was hoping for.
Yeah, exactly. And it looks like it's happening because it's a lot of times being around brilliant people. Sometimes I'm not able to summarize it into a pithy or a aphorism of something I learned, but I could have picked up skills that I know I've added, but I can't quite elaborate on them in words. Claude, a question for you. So when you entered MIT, did you know that you wanted to start a beer business, or were you just like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur, I'm going to figure something out?
No, I was actually looking at starting a different company, more in the kind of enterprise security realm, because that was kind of my background in the Navy. So completely different business, and the beer thing kind of happened about a year after being in school.
Oh, wow. So you mean going into your second year of MIT, or a year after you graduated?
Yeah, going into my second year. I worked with a buddy of mine over the summer on a 3D printing company. And then when I went back to school, I was looking at kind of what I would do. I didn't really have an idea. Didn't really know a company that I was interested in joining, and started looking at normal jobs. And a friend of mine from the Navy, who's stationed in London, kind of gave me this idea for a homebrewing competition where we'd get a bunch of homebrewers together, and the winning recipe we'd get produced professionally, and then everybody would get a case of the winning beer. And I was like, that's awesome. And started talking to people about it, and people were like, yeah, I would totally do it, or totally want to try the winning beer, and thought that there was something there. So looked into doing that, and that's when I understood a lot of the regulations within the alcohol industry and why we wouldn't be able to do that contest, but at the same time thought that there was something there. And that's kind of how Noble Brewer was born.
Right on. It started out as a contest, right? And then I know you talked about this. Legally, starting a beer business or anything with liquor, right, is quite tough. And you found a way to share homebrewers' beers, but keep it legal.
Right. That's where the professional breweries come in that make our homebrewers' beers. So it's not homebrew because it's made at a licensed professional brewery. It's professional beer. It's craft beer would be kind of what it would fall under. But it's it's the only way to get homebrewers' beers and where they can actually sell it to somebody.
Gotcha. And so let's go through the process here. I'm a hypothetical example. I have a beer, right? Let's say I have an IPA I want to sell, and I say, Claude, do I have to be voted up? Or I say, Claude, here's my beer. Here's my recipe. Can I be part of Noble Brewer? How do what happens from there?
Yeah. So right now, I'll say what we do right now, and then kind of what we're planning on doing later as the company grows. Right now, we look for BJCP competition results. So people that have entered homebrewing competitions and have done well and won awards. And that's kind of our objective quality standard. So it's not me or a group of people deciding like this beer should get made or this beer shouldn't get made. We're really looking for awarded brewers. That way we kind of have an objective quality. And once we kind of do that, we look at kind of variety, what's going out in our next shipment. We don't necessarily want to send like 4 of the same beer. Our members kind of want variety and want to try something new and different. So even though it's from the same home brewer, if you're not a big IPA fan and we send you 4 IPAs, you're probably not going to be very happy. So you want to provide that variety. And then we look at, is what your homebrew recipe is that scalable? Is that something that we could take to a commercial brewery and replicate and feel that we could have success with it. And if kind of all those, and then I guess the last piece, which to me is the most important piece really, is kind of the willingness of the home brewer to kind of share their story. Everybody has a story, but we want to kind of share that with our members. It's not just getting beer in the mail. It's getting beer and knowing who made it and what went into making that beer, and then being able to kind of give feedback to that brewer. So kind of having a closer connection to what you're actually drinking. So if all those things kind of make sense, then we kind of decide to work together and we license the recipe from the home brewer.
Okay, and licensing the recipe, do you guys own the recipe, own a part, or is it completely owned by the home brewer?
It's owned by the home brewer. We license it, so we have the right to use the recipe and make their beer essentially.
Gotcha. Okay.
But they have complete control of it. If they wanted to start a brewery the next day and use that beer, they're completely able to. We want them to, we're not going to like steal anyone's recipe and not let them use it. It's really about getting their beer out there, but just covering us legally.
So did you have to get a bunch of lawyers involved and I say a bunch of lawyers, kind of cynical just because sometimes legal fees just can be astronomical, but I assume you got some legal counsel to figure all this stuff out.
Yeah, we have a couple lawyers.
A couple lawyers, yeah. I know how it is, man. So really interesting. I have two follow-ups there. So one, commercial success. We talked about Etsy. I guess the idea is there's the subscription service, but maybe, as it grows, you could also, let's just say, I'm looking on your website here. Let's say the Yerba Buena Brewing, their Ultra Black IPA takes off. Then it could also be added to the Etsy style where you offer that as a beer that you can buy a case of on the website, correct?
Yeah, that's kind of, I guess, version 2 of where we're trying to go with the company. Right now, we're trying to build a community of early supporters that are really big beer fans and like trying different styles. The next piece is really building out a marketplace, and not just a marketplace, but a crowdsourced marketplace where our community actually decides which beers they want to see made. You have a beer, for example, and you're like, hey, here's my beer. And you don't necessarily have to have won any awards, but you can get your friends to comment on it, talk about how good the beer was, share pictures of like a party you threw at your house. Different ways to kind of give our members or people that are looking at the website an idea on whether or not your beer should be made. And if enough people want to see that happen, we'll be the mechanism that makes that happen and then delivers the beer to the members who kind of supported it.
Great. Okay. Now I have actually I have two more follow-ups to what you said about a couple of minutes ago. So really good stuff here. Now, I wanted to mention, have you ever read Kendall Jackson's book? It's a biography called A Man in His Mountain.
I have not.
Okay. So, and I'm sure you heard of Kendall Jackson and his wine company from California, yep. Right?
Oh, yeah.
So he was, one of those kind of Richard Branson style, very, very risky and just all out, one of those exceptional entrepreneurs. And the whole thing hinged. You could argue that he could have gone bankrupt without any recourse if he didn't win an award, because as you mentioned, winning awards is really important in liquor, in beer and wine, and I believe liquor as well. And it was funny because like in the book, he talks about it where he had hired someone and she had just started working and it was like her third week. And he's like, yeah, you need to get me an award. And like the competition he wanted to be in, the deadline was July 2nd. And it was, I think it was like the day before or the day of the deadline when he told her about it. And you just like figure it out. Like one of those bosses just like figure it out, make it happen. Yep. And she did. And she ended up, if I remember correctly, like getting equity in the company and playing a pivotal role. But so I think awards is great. And I think it's easy for you guys too, because there's got to be hundreds of thousands or maybe tens of thousands or millions, I don't know, of microbrews or not microbrews, home brews, right, to choose from. So it's great to have an award system that filters it out. So yeah, I do recommend to anyone in the audience to read Kendall Jackson's biography. Great book and great for food entrepreneurs. And then the second thing you said was the story. So I'm curious about that story. Specialty coffee, a lot of times will say, it comes from this part of Kenya or Ethiopia or Colombia, from this farm. This is the owner of the farm. This is the altitude that it was grown on. The characteristics of the coffee fruit are X, Y, and Z. How are you telling the story of these brewers?
Yeah, so we do that in two ways. One, we put an insert in the actual shipment of beer. So when you get the beer, you can see who made it, kind of what the beer is, and then we direct people to our website. And on our website's really where we go in more depth We give kind of pictures of the brewers. We do videos with each of the brewers, and that's their opportunity to kind of talk about their beer or their future brewery or just their experience in the home brewing community overall, and really allow our members to get a closer feel for who these people are and why this beer and what they should kind of look for in it. Sometimes they go into kind of, here's what you should pair with it. It really just kind of depends on what the home brewer wants to share with the audience. So that's kind of how we do it. And like our end goal is to make and we're not quite there yet, but to make it to where it's the same feeling that you get if you went to a small craft brewery and the actual brewer poured you a pint and slid it across the bar to you and actually told you about it and told you about who they were and what they were doing with their brewery. We want to kind of use technology to create that same experience. So when you get kind of our box of beer, you can have some kind of connection with the actual person.
Just looking at like doodling and the stories here, listeners, this will be at foodstartupspodcast.com/beer. I think it's really interesting. And it seems like you guys produce the videos. Like it's a high quality level of production. And the other thing that I like, so I don't know if you've been to Argentina, but if you go out and order a beer in Argentina, usually they'll serve like the 32-ounce beers. And college aside, the idea is you buy it, maybe you, me, and another friend, we would sit there and we kind of sip on it and share the beer between 3 people. So like the 22-ounce, it's conducive where, it's almost 2 beers, right? It's almost 2 12-ounce beers where you can, because, the idea is like to try these beers, right? So not just one person's going to have the 22-ounce themselves. You can share it with a couple of friends.
Exactly. And that's exactly why we go with the 22-ounce bottles versus kind of the standard 12-ounce, is we really want people to share the beer and talk about the home brewer, because that's how we get their story out there to more people. If we just ship a 12-ounce bottle to one person, they'll drink it. But doing the 22, a lot of our members have, invited friends over, taken it to bottle shares, done dinners around them to really kind of create that experience and talk to, it gives them a reason to have people over that they like, and then they can kind of share the same experience and talk about the home brewer. And that's really what we want to do, is we want to be able to get their beers out there to more people and kind of just bring people closer together through beer.
Right. It's all about telling stories. So it's like you guys tell the story of the brewers. So when I have my dinner party, I can brag to my friends that come over for dinner, hey, I get 4 home brews every month. And, this is from, this is the doodling, right? And talk about it, right? Because, dinner is conversation. It's all about storytelling. I think that's awesome. And I love how you said the story is the most important. So great stuff here. Now, Claude, I want to move over to the right now. When does the next subscription go out?
So we're currently sending out our June shipment, which is we remade the Doodling Jonathan Fuller's California Farmhouse Ale. We did Mike Riddle's Robust Porter, and Mike's a 5-time California Home Brewer of the Year. He doesn't have any plans to open a brewery, so this is really the only way you'd get to kind of try his beer, unless you know him or go to a home brewing competition that he happens to be at. And then Camino's Cafe Con Leche Stout. So that's what we're shipping right now, and then our next shipment will go out again in September. So we ship on a quarterly cycle.
Awesome. Now tell me, what's your job right now? Or do you go to the breweries and observe these things? What's there's so much stuff to do, right? You have to get the shipments ready, but at the same time, you also have to get people to subscribe. What's the lead time? I guess what I mean to say is, if you have 1,000 people order, right, then you need to get, 4,000 beers, right? 4 for each subscription. What's the cutoff time and what's the lead time to get one of these orders ready?
As far as like customers ordering now, if they order now, they'll get our June shipment. And usually we ship within 48 hours. Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that's perfect. Okay, so you guys are taking... No, that's perfect. You guys are taking a little bit of risk, right? Where you have to take a guess on how much beer is going to be ordered, right?
Absolutely.
Okay. I like that in the sense that, one, I'm a risk taker, but more as a consumer. If I have to buy it and all right, you'll have it in September 21st. That's like, oh, great. My dinner party's, next week. We're all spoiled by Amazon, right? So at least for your first order, it's like 3 months is a long time to wait to get your first order, right?
Exactly. And really what we want to do is kind of build a community around our members and supporting our home brewers, and then giving feedback to our home brewers to really get to that next stage where our members are deciding what we make. We are taking a little bit of risk, but ultimately it's beer. So we definitely have no shortage of people willing to take it off our hands for different events that they want to do.
Yeah, exactly. Cool. All right. Well, listen, talked about this Etsy model. A question for you. You have like nice design on the website. I'm looking at your team here. I want to say, for lack of a better word, I know it's kind of got jaded these days, but like internet marketing and like social media, how important is that right now to your business?
I mean, it's huge because we're a digital beer company more than anything else. It's really a core competency that we need to be really, really good at. Social is definitely part of that. But because we sell direct to consumer, we're not able to sell to bars or restaurants. So that kind of is a neat little wrinkle that because of how we're structured legally.
It's a legal thing. So if I had a restaurant, I couldn't buy your beer.
Correct.
Oh man, is that always going to be like that? Or do you have any idea like if that could change? Or
there's some workarounds we'd have to do, but they would take quite a bit of lead time.
Gotcha. Well, that's interesting to know. That's something I would never have even thought of. And I know like you're only allowed in certain states right now, as you can see at the bottom of your website. With regards to like this whole marketplace, I think we talked about this, and I'm going to talk about this later on for all of my podcasts. It comes down to solving a problem, and it sounds cliche, but you guys are solving a problem right now. There's plenty of, I think it was at like 2 million different types of home brews. I was reading an article. Correct me if I'm wrong there, but there's so many home brews that you could never really try because of logistics, right? Logistics, legal, et cetera, et cetera. And you guys are trying to make that happen. So, Claude, I want to wish you the best of luck in your endeavor. Please keep us posted. Any cool photos, any developments. And thanks so much for coming on the show.
I really appreciate it, Matt. And like we are pretty active on social media. So our Facebook or Twitter, you can definitely find us and kind of see what we're up to. And we usually post a lot of beer news. So if you just are like beer, we're pretty good, news aggregator in that sense.
Perfect. Yeah. And so, noblebrewerbeer.com and Brewer, BREWER beer.com, and then the same tag on Twitter. Hey guys, thanks so much for listening. And as always, if you have any questions or comments, find us online at foodstartupspodcast.com.